Go. All right, I'm gonna go live.
Sure.
Here we go, and we are live. All right, guys, what's up? This is the Shutterbugs podcast on the A1 Groundwalker channel. This is a Shutter Larva episode reviewing another episode of The Mandalorian. Today's is chapter 14, episode 6 of season 2. I'm joined by my co-host, who's finally here instead of last week, Finn. And then we got two returning guests who will be returning every week for these episodes, at least we hope so, which is Cap Lives and Geeky Fresh.
What's up?
Oh, what's going on?
Yes, sir. Your boy is back. Your boy is here. The Shutterbugs boys back to talk about their toys. What's up, man?
I was talking about the Mandalorian. We're not talking about toys.
I guess so. I'm gonna bring up toys later though because I need a bunch of new figures now.
Okay.
We'll talk about one big toy that people are gonna be upset about that they have.
Oh yeah,
bro,
I
when
text
that-
Bryan that last night in the morning. I laughed so hard, but we'll talk about it when it.
And Aiden, this is spoiler.
I know exactly.
Oh yeah. Did you not watch last week's episode, Finn? Come on, man.
God.
I watched the last one.
Of
Bro,
course.
who is like kissing their mic right now, bro?
I think
Oh,
that's
my
good.
bad. Sorry.
That's all good, bro.
He's
Gary,
practicing
I'm
his
not trying to
moves.
come for you, bro. I didn't know that was you. I'm sorry.
Nah, I'm over here building a new dio.
Oh, okay.
Dang.
He's already, dude. Man never stops grinding. Swear. Okay, here we go. So first of all, we will be discussing Mandalorian. So this is the inevitable spoiler warning because we always have spoilers in these episodes because there's no way to just do this without spoilers. So spoiler. You have been warned. Please, you want to go watch this episode. You do not want to watch this without having seen the episode. I put up a big spoiler alert right here, so I'm giving you guys time. Click out of the video, come back to this, and you can discuss it with us whenever you finish the episode because you do not want to hear any of this if you have not seen, last night / today's episode. All right.
Tonight's episode.
I said last night / today. That's what I meant. But anyway, you guys have been warned. We'll start into the summary of what occurred last night, and then we'll go from there. So, first of all, episode 14 took us with Mando and Grogu at the start, just in the ship, and Mando was kind of I wouldn't even say surprised, but he was just really happy to finally know the child's name, and he was kind of playing with the ball with him, seeing how the Force worked. And then they land, obviously, to find the Seeing Stone. Mando takes his jetpack up there because he can't land his ship, and Grogu's placed on the Seeing Stone. Nothing happens for a little bit of time, and then we hear a ship's noise. And this was probably the biggest reveal of the episode, but we see Slave 1 entering the atmosphere and coming down to land just shortly below the Seeing Stone. And then Mando, obviously fearing this is a bounty hunter or Imperial or someone basically just coming for the kid, he turns around and sees Grogu using the Force, full Yoda pose with his fingers and with his thumbs and index fingers locked, and just full meditation. And there's a big blue stream coming up from the Seeing Stone to the sky. So Mando tries to get him from the Seeing Stone, is repelled back by the Force. So he just decides to go try to defend Baby Yoda and take on whoever's landed. Which we do find out is Boba Fett, and Boba Fett discusses how he's come for his armor, which we saw the first episode was in the hands of the Marshal, and then Mandalorian was able to take it back by killing a crate dragon, so that's where that connected. And then after a lot of discussion, when Fennec is there, who was saved by Boba Fett, and she has a sniper trained on the child, they all discuss that they will help Mando protect the child in exchange for Boba's armor, which the deal's really not finalized at this point. It's just kind of up in the air. Mando takes off his jetpack. They all put down their weapons. And then an Imperial, trooper transport comes through the atmosphere and lands next to the Razor Crest. And just a bunch of white Imperial stormtroopers come out, and kind of the whole group breaks up. Boba and Fennec go to take care of the Imperial troopers while Mando goes to protect the child. And then we see some awesome fighting from both Fennec and Boba Fett of these stormtroopers, a lot of blaster fire, a lot of melee combat, while melee, whatever. Mando goes up to see the child, gets repelled by the Force a numerous amount of times again. And then I believe at this time another troop transport comes down. And so Mando goes back down to fight with Fennec and Boba. All the Imperial troopers, and then basically Boba kind of sneaks onto the Razor Crest, grabs his armor, And then he just like when they're getting pinned down, Mando and Fennec getting shot at a lot, Boba comes to the rescue and has a pretty badass scene of him using the armor. A lot of stuff that Mando's armor doesn't have, some stuff that it does, and it was really cool. We see Boba blast the 2 Imperial troop transports, and it feels like the Empire's been defeated. However, I wouldn't even call it a Star Destroyer. We don't know, or at least I don't know the exact model, but there's some sort of big Imperial fleet ship up in the atmosphere that was sending these troop transports. They have the onboard cannons take out the Razor Crest. That's kind of what me and Bryan were talking about earlier. It blows up. There's literally nothing left of it besides some kind of like scrap and scavenge from the inside, including the Beskar spear. But when Mando sees his ship blown up, he immediately goes for the child because he assumes they'll fire on the Sing Stone. And during this time, the child came out of meditation, I guess, or whatever he was reaching out to the Force in, and kind of falls asleep. And I believe they're Dark Troopers, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, the Dark Troopers are deployed, which is what we saw in the last episode in Moff Gideon, where he was standing above. So those are deployed. They're basically kind of have propulsion technology where they can fly almost like Iron Man. So they fly down, surround Baby Yoda at the Seeing Stone or Grogu, and then they pick him up and snatch him and jet off. And Mando, without his jetpack, can't follow, so he just kind of sits there and watches Grogu go all the way up. And then we get a cool scene of Boba in Slave 1 trying to take out these guys, but Mando just says don't do it because he doesn't want to hurt the child. Boba tails him, finds the Imperial starship, I guess, comes down, and then they jet off, and Boba agrees with Fennec to help Mando or Din Djarin to get the child back, because they had a deal that the child would be safe, he could get the armor, but since the child's no longer safe, he's in his debt and wants to repay that by making sure the child's safe. So we get kind of that whole crew going, and then we get Slave 1 landing on our our starting planet where we started with the whole journey of the Mandalorian. And Mando goes to see the newly, certified Republic Marshal, New Republic Marshal Cara Dune, and asked to go through the Imperial Prison Registry to find a sharpshooter, which is, I'm forgetting his name for whatever reason, it's spacing me right now.
Mayfield.
Thank you, yeah. Mayfield, who was from the, I wouldn't call it Bounty Hunter, but like the Thief episode where, Bill...
The Prisoner was the episode name.
Exactly,
right?
The Prisoner, thank you. And he's from that episode, so we're going to be seeing him return. And then Cara Dune's not really agreeing to it, and then Mando says they have a kid, and obviously her tone switches a lot, and we can obviously expect a team up coming up. And then we get to see Moff Gideon on the ship with the child, and the child's tossing around the stormtroopers, using the Force, and then of course using the Force, it tires him and fatigues him, and he can't do anything. And then Moff Gideon puts handcuffs on him and walks out of the room, and we still don't really know his purpose is. All we know is that he's sending an encrypted message to the doctor that we saw in the first episode and a couple episodes ago to come back because their new donor is ready, assuming that they're going to use the blood of Baby Yoda to do whatever they're going to do. And yeah, that was the whole episode. So we're going to open it up to our normal discussion. Obviously, that was all the spoilers, so you guys don't have to fear if anything you didn't know, and hopefully you clicked off before. And so I think the main thing we'll just talk about, we'll kind of go in order. The main thing is Boba Fett's return. What was everyone thinking about that?
Loved it, bro. Loved it. I was in the Discord the other day with Bryan. We were talking about my problems with the show, which are few, but they exist. And we were basically saying, like, man, I hope Boba Fett is not just in that part as, like, a tease for another show, or, like, just in it for a second and then not appear again, because that would be, like, that's really annoying. I don't want this show to just set up everything else. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I want there to be, like, some consistency. And then he just popped right back in, and we see the Slave 1. And I'm like, yes, awesome. Here we go. This is amazing. I was geeking when I saw the Slave 1. And as soon as he asked for that armor, bro, I was like, let's go. I was so excited. And he did not mess around, too.
Oh, yeah. So, not at all.
Bro.
What about you, Gary? And then we'll finish with Bryan, because I know Bryan has some thoughts about that character in general. So we'll hear what Bryan has to say.
I feel the same way about what Ben just said. Like, I have it in my notes right here, just like Boba Fett is back. Like, the moment I saw that Slave 1 coming through the sky, I was like, oh, shit, they're really about to do this. I also like the fact that they didn't waste any time.
Exactly.
like doing anything. Everything was just action from beginning to end for the most part, so, except for even the beginning part.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boba Fett went in and just showed like how a real Mandalorian is supposed to work, and I think that's like another issue I probably have about this. Well, not another, but one issue I actually did have with this episode, and we can get into it later. But the fact that he got his armor, and then even added more lore to the Fett family line. Like this is my armor. You can see it here. This is my father's armor. And then like Mando was like, oh shit, he was a foundling like me then. It's like, yeah, bro, like shit, my armor, man. What are you talking about? and then the fact that we're gonna get like pretty much a team up. Boba, like, yeah, we're not getting just a Boba Fett like one off or like, he just looks out into the sun anymore. This man came in to put in some work.
Yep. All right. Love that. Bryan, now you are up. Do whatever venting you need to do.
All right, so I watched this episode twice. Didn't get to watch the didn't get to watch the Ahsoka episode twice, sadly, but I did get to watch this episode twice. And first viewing, I was like, "Yo, this is a great episode. This is like might be my favorite episode of the season." But then I watched it again, and I was like, "Yo, it's a good episode. Don't get me wrong. It's my third favorite episode of this season. I still prefer the Ahsoka episode, the Bo-Katan episode." But there were just some things where I was kind of like, "Why are we doing this? Why?" Like Boba Fett, he was cool. Like it was cool seeing him do something aside from like standing around. But like when the Slave One showed up, I was kind of like, "Why is this here?" Like you're telling me that the Razor Crest gets scrapped like within 5 minutes of it being on Tatooine, but the Slave One could stay there for 10 years and not be touched. And then him bringing back Ming-Na Wen's character was cool. I forgot her name. I just kept calling her Ming-Na Wen. And then you can hear me, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then Din Djarin was like an idiot this episode. I'm not gonna lie.
Bro.
He's so dumb this episode.
He was.
Bro.
I swear. When he was like, all right, let me go get the baby. Okay, I can't get in. Let me go get the baby. Okay,
he did it like three. He like did
one
like
more time.
Why? I was like, what are you doing,
bro? Why did he leave his jetpack too?
Yep. That's what I was thinking. That bothered me so much.
I was telling my family that. I was like, if he never put his backpack down, Baby Yoda would have never been taken.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
He tried to go on foot to the top of the mountain. It was so stupid.
Even then, if he doesn't make it, he can just fly up to the Dark Trooper.
Exactly.
His hand, destroy the Dark Trooper, grab Grogu, and fly back down. And
yes.
He went down there twice, though. He went down there twice, remember? So, well, not twice.
Exactly.
One more time.
He had multiple chances.
Like, you didn't pick up your backpack while you were on the way. Oh, I gotta get to the baby.
Yeah, or like when he was first alerted of it, and he was in front of literally like right next to his jetpack, and then just left it there and went up.
Yeah, and then again, Boba was cool. He was like kicking butt or whatever. But like, I kind of felt like they undercut it because like the stormtroopers in this episode are kind of like they're lame. Like
no way, bro.
What's
oh my god.
Yes. How are you going to miss Ming-Na Wen when she is open? There is nothing blocking her. She's running.
Oh yeah, when she was running across the rock thing, I was like, this is just taking stormtroopers can't shoot to a whole new level.
Bro,
like,
exactly, that was the
They were
problem.
just painting her outline essentially. It was hilarious.
I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like,
come on now, don't throw these stormtroopers.
Hold on, but they were shooting the shit out of Mando though.
Oh yeah, exactly. In that last part, Mando was getting blasted.
He was just standing there.
I was like, what are you doing?
And then so like it kind of felt like Boba Fett was like he was doing cool stuff. He was just like beating up on idiots already. People who were like they don't know what they were doing, and then they ran away. And I was like, there are more than y'all. There are more of y'all than there are of them. Y'all could still do this, but they ran away. I was like, what are you doing? You can still win this thing. Why are you running away?
Okay, so basically, Bryan did not like this episode as much.
I didn't say that. I said I liked the episode.
Okay, well, I happened to love it. It is tied probably for my favorite episode of the season, bro. It was so well done. It was so well paced. There was not one boring moment at all. Like, when I saw that it was only half an hour, I was like, we just got like an hour-long one last week. Why can't we be getting longer episode this week? But dude, they did not drag out anything at all. We got no annoying mechanic lady from stupid Tatooine or whatever that I hate. We got no dinky fish lady with her eggs. We got no.
She was almost.
We got no
Yo,
boring
that's
sub.
a frog.
Bro, hold on. We got
Fish
no
lady?
boring subplot or any. Okay, whatever, bro. Now we got nothing dragged this episode out, and I thought it was so engaging. And also, Bryan, coming at these stormtroopers, bro, can I just say, every time a stormtrooper comes on the screen, I geek so hard. Like, I get so pumped to see
It's a
my
cool
dude.
design, but they don't do anything.
But Bryan,
Like,
here's what I don't understand.
bro.
What, is that your critique on every single Star Wars medium that they're in? They never do anything. I don't care.
That's pretty
about
sad.
that.
That's pretty sad.
Bro, I never said that they're cool for that reason. I just think they look awesome. And also, they're comedic relief. Like, what was it? When he was like, go, what are you doing? He's like, get up there. And the guy was like, oh, okay. And he ran up and then got shot immediately. Bro, that was hilarious. And when the boulder was coming down and it was like, do, and he was trying to break the boulder up and then he was like, welp, and then got smushed. Bro, I was laughing so hard. Also, quick tangent. I need whatever that rocket trooper was. That yellow and white one. Holy, bro. You know what I'm talking about?
It's called a jump trooper. They're in Rebels.
Are you sure? Because I thought jump
Yeah.
troopers had different. Because this
I'm
looked
pretty
just
sure.
like an incinerator trooper, but with yellow instead of red.
Oh, I don't know. That's
Yeah, it looked like an incinerator trooper with yellow
Bro,
insignias.
I need 2 of those right now. I want every single trooper. I'm about to put an orange pauldron on one of these stormtroopers I have right now, bro. I'm about to go ham on these troopers. I want all the troopers.
Finn's
I want
crazy
dark
for
troopers.
white
I want more
stormtroopers,
Death
I
troopers.
swear.
I want stormtroopers. I want clone troopers. I want rocket troopers. I want more incinerator troopers. I want all of them, dog. That was so active. And we got to see Boba Fett literally we got to see him clobber everyone, but I really thought at the end that Mando was about to be like, yo, take the spear, because you were killing it with whatever that melee weapon was. Because the way he was holding it, I'm like, he's about to give this to Fett because he is killing it with the melee. But maybe, just maybe, Boba might train Mando to use that
oh
melee.
god.
You know what I'm saying? That'd be kind of lit. Okay, whatever, maybe not.
Okay.
And that's the problem that I have though, because like Mando has already proven that he's very skilled in many different like
Forms
aspects of using weapons,
Yeah.
hand-to-hand combat, and then like he did not display the tactical awareness and skill that he's been showing like throughout multiple
Exactly.
episodes.
I do agree
He
with
was
that for
written
sure.
really
I do
terribly.
think a lot of it is.
They nerfed him to make Boba look even cooler, but he was already
knew it
doing
was gonna
cool
happen.
shit.
Well, exactly.
I knew
Like, why not
happen.
have them both do
Yeah.
cool shit?
Exactly. You could tell in the last scene too when Mando and like Fennec were being just surrounded, and Mando was literally like, he was barely firing. He was just taking the shots off the armor, like barely going for cover, just trying to sit there. Obviously, like the creators just wanted to like put him in a very bad situation, make him look really weak, so Boba could come in for the clutch, cool, like saving
Which
the
you
day
knew was gonna
moment.
happen.
Which
That was
again,
my worry.
it was entertaining no matter what, like to see him fight in the armor and do a lot of cool stuff. But I completely agree that they definitely, by taking off his jetpack, by just the way Mando acted the whole episode, completely like nerfed him to make Boba look a lot better. Like it definitely
They
happened.
did. You're right, Aiden. They did. Also, can I just say one of the funniest moments was when he's like, we can't land here. It's too small. I was like, whoa, are they just gonna like have to walk up the mountain like Rey in like Force Awakens or whatever? He's like, we gotta put the windows down. I was like, what? And when he started flying with Baby Yoda and Baby
This
Yoda
man,
squealed,
Finn,
bro, that made me
thinks
so happy.
everything is hilarious.
It was funny. Bro, Baby Yoda being like, when they were flying, that was so funny, Brian. I'm not out here with a heart of stone.
I didn't think it was funny, but I liked it. I didn't
It
know.
was cool. I
loved
just
it.
didn't think it was funny.
Yeah, I didn't know there was comedy in it. But
Oh,
hey,
my bad.
it was still good.
Nice.
But I think
I liked it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think me and Bryan both want to talk about this, but they definitely retconned and also added some
So
canon
much
stuff.
retconning.
Yeah,
Ugh.
with Boba Fett and the Fett lineage and just kind of their connection to Mandalorian. So first of all, I guess the knowledge we've always known from Clone Wars specifically is when, I forget what the Prime Minister's name is, Bryan, but basically he just states that Jango, like when Obi-Wan's like, I had an encounter with a Mandalorian recently,
Oh,
Jango
Duchess
Fett.
Satine? Talking about
Yeah,
her?
no, but it wasn't Satine. It was whoever
Oh.
her like right-hand man was, who ended up being corrupt in the Clone Wars, and I
Oh,
forget
yeah, I
who
remember
it
him. I
was.
can't remember his name either.
Yeah.
though.
But he said that Jango Fett was just a common bounty hunter, and he had no idea how he got the armor. So that is what we believe the Fett's connection to Mandalore is that they weren't Mandalorians, that somehow Jango and Boba, or just Jango, killed a Mandalorian, got the armor, and it was either handed down to Boba or Boba did the same thing, which we talked about last episode, Brian. Which, first of all, they canonized that that's Jango's armor. So that was a cool, just kind of like cool clarification. And then second of all, they said that Jango was a foundling and even fought in Mandalorian Civil Wars, obviously prequels. Which, I think they felt the need to connect it so Boba could take back the armor. I feel like that would, they felt that Mando in character would not give it to Boba if Boba had no connection to it. Again, he
also could have lied, by the way.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's very true.
That might not be completely true. I
feel like it's the chain code, though.
Which I don't really need.
Just said, he fought in this war.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think the chain code is what certifies it as it's his armor, and that's he was a foundling for sure. And I think that explanation also gave more incentive for him to take it, so it makes sense. But it was just definitely weird to see, because it felt like a detail that didn't need to be retconned, but they did, to give also Boba maybe more credibility as a Mandalorian, even though his father was one and not even a true Mandalorian, because we don't know exactly what happens, but somehow there is a definitive falling out between Jango and the Mandalorians, and we don't know what happens. But apparently, he was a foundling, and then he just kind of cuts ties to Mandalore. Because obviously, the way the governor was talking about him, if we're still taking that as canon, which we are, it's Clone Wars, then obviously there's some sort of disagreement or some sort of falling out between Jango and Mandalore. So we don't know that, but that was the main thing that we know of that was retconned.
Yeah. Maybe it could just be a case where pretty much what happens is, he is a Mandalorian, but kind of like how Bo-Katan kind of looked at Din, where Din says he's a Mandalorian, but she's like, you're a part of a death cult, bro. You're not really a Mandalorian.
Oh, very true.
So it could just be that. It could just be that.
A different section of Mandalore that
Poncho
was...
in here? What's up, Poncho?
Poncho's in the chat.
Looked like it.
I need to drop
Brian,
the link in the Discord.
I never got to say this, though, because we didn't do an episode for it, but I loved that, by the way, how she, basically cleared it all up, where she's like, bro, you are a part of this really small radical group that does not speak for everything.
Well, exactly. That was another thing we needed explained, because until that moment, we didn't know. Clone Wars and Rebels showed Mandalorians without their helmets on. Jango didn't have his helmet on, although we thought he was just a bounty hunter, but Boba always had his helmet on. So it was literally a cluster of what the heck is going on, who is true Mandalorian, who's not. Is this true Mandalorian? Is it not? We were all very confused. Even the Death Watch in Clone Wars took off their helmets, or at least Pre-Vizsla did. So we literally were so confused as to what the heck was going on. So that little explanation in that episode, I think it was the third one, was super helpful for sure.
For real though, but we need to be. There's so many figures we need to get, because we need to get those Dark Troopers. We need to get that one yellow Stormtrooper. We need to get freaking Bo-Katan and all the other Mandalorians.
We need the Court of Owls. Yeah, exactly, the owls.
I wanted to add. I wanted to add real quickly though. That I'm not really into Clone Wars that much. I got into Clone Wars literally probably the first 2 seasons and then the final season. So everything in between, I really just don't care about.
Yeah.
But I know that there's a lot of lore within there though, and I feel as a person. Remember we were talking about last week, how would a person who has no connection to any of that extra lore, that extra story that you're not ever going to get in those movies are going to feel about these things? I feel by retconning Boba and Jango to be some sort of a real tie-in to the Mandalore people is going to do great things in the future, because I feel like this show is sort of like Arrow,
Yeah, it's going to be a segue to a whole universe of Star Wars
exactly.
shows. Yeah.
Arrow was already all right, so if this show does really well, which has been doing amazing so far, we need to make more of this, somehow, some way. And
introducing the characters in the series, and then to branch out to their own, like Ahsoka or like Boba Fett.
Because I don't see Boba Fett getting into any type of sequels or tie-ins to the sequels ever.
Yeah.
In fact, I feel like those movies are gonna just be forgotten. But
I don't know.
With the
hold on
possibility
now.
of this much TV,
just simply because
we could see it.
like
sure.
think about it. We I don't want to go off track to what I'm saying about Boba Fett, but just like you think about it, like the prequels were hated for so long.
Yeah.
But because of the tie-ins, because of the fondness of just like, oh man, they weren't that bad, and then the tie-ins were in there that made them even better.
Yeah,
so I feel like this is just a setup for Ahsoka, hopefully her own show, most likely Bo-Katan, and probably Boba Fett. This is just all a big tie-in, and this is just a great opportunity to like, all right, we need to make fans remember who this guy was in the movies, because he didn't do too much. He didn't do much of anything in the originals.
If you wanted to remind them of how he was in the movies, he'd just be standing around. Come on.
But people, when
Gary,
people think of Boba Fett,
it's streamlining it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like when people think of Boba Fett, you don't think of him not doing anything. You think of a badass bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Just by reputation alone.
Exactly.
That's like when you see that helmet. When a lot of people see that helmet, just normal casual people, they know Boba Fett. Yep. They just know him. They don't know. They've probably never even seen the movie. They'd be like, "Yo, that's that badass that's in Star Wars. He's probably the only cool character." But then when they watch the movie, they'd be like, "Yo, what did he do?"
Nothing. Exactly.
He didn't do anything.
Facts.
But based off his reputation, based off the things he's done in the comic books, based off the things he's done in video games, everybody know who Boba Fett is. So this was a really good opportunity to really get this character to shine, which they had to nerf Mando, which sucks because I don't think they needed to do that.
They didn't need to do that at all.
Oh, not at all.
Because look what happened with Bo-Katan. Like, Mando still had his badass moment, even though they kind of nerfed him in there too. But he had a badass moment in there. He had no badass.
See, but the thing with that too, though.
In the Bo-Katan episode. Oh, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Bryan, which I think is what you're gonna touch on, is just that in the Bo-Katan episode, I was okay with it because Bo-Katan and the Owls, they are like true Mandalorian warriors, bred for like they're soldiers. I mean, they are literally soldiers. Where Mando or Din Djarin was raised as a foundling. He didn't really raise with the Watch in terms of like true Mandalore because the Purge had already happened. And so he really just, I mean, he has a lot of skills from experience, a lot of bounty hunting skills, very similar to Boba. But I mean, the Mandalorian warriors as depicted in Clone Wars are like actual soldiers. I mean, they make the clones look like a kindergarten class. I mean, they are truly, like, that's why I was okay with Mando in that episode actually not performing as well as them. But in this episode, we've seen way more of Mando than we have of Boba. And from what we've seen specifically in Season 1, before even the child is captured, he is this reputable force. He is one of the best bounty hunters in that parsec or in that section of the galaxy, as he's called in like the first 2 episodes. And he gets a full thing of Beskar and all these. He was the only one to pull off this huge job. So like we know that Mando is this legitimate badass. Although we've seen Boba and he has all this hype behind him, the comics are no longer canon, so it's really like, what is he? What's his connection? Like, we don't. It's kind of a ghost story. They bring him in. Great to see him that he's actually has all of this power and clout behind him, but they didn't need to take Mando down multiple pegs just to show that Boba could handle his own.
No,
yeah,
you're
kind
right,
of felt
man.
like they summed them. They were like, "Hey, you may be the face of this show, but you ain't the face of this franchise, all right?"
Exactly.
Well, it's cool to give the new characters the other characters their shine. You know what I mean? Where it's like the thing I was gonna say earlier is like I do like how they're streamlining a lot of this. Like I will always say like I love Clone Wars. I love all of this. I don't like. There's parts of it that I love. You know what I mean? And so like Star Wars as a franchise, we all love it, but some people just don't have the time or capacity to go back and watch like 7 to 10 seasons of shows if you count all of Rebels and all of Clone Wars. Like, so I get like, yeah, okay, this doesn't really hurt much, and let's just make it easy for people to understand. Like Jango Fett foundling, you know what a foundling is because you're watching The Mandalorian. Like you don't have to like be like, well, he stole it off a body of someone, blah blah blah. They could get into that if they wanted to, but I do like that it's kind of making it more accessible. But my only fear is that I'm like, I don't want like what Gary, you were saying earlier, but my fear is that I don't want this show to just become the jumping off point for everything else. Like Arrow was fine for like a season and a half, but I mean, Mandalorian is much better than Arrow, but like I don't like the idea of it just becoming the the base for all these other shows to just cross over and to just get like springed off of. You know what I mean? Like I want this to be its standalone story.
Well, I completely agree with that too, Finn. I think we like all can. I think knowing Star Wars and knowing Disney has the rights and obviously they like their dynasties and to like push out, I feel like we're maybe not going to get all of them in live action. I feel like we'll probably get an Ahsoka, Sabine, maybe animated series probably following Ezra, and then we'll get a Boba Fett live action because it's Boba Fett, and obviously all of the early people who watch Star Wars, like obviously when it came out, have a big strong connection to the original trilogy, have a strong connection to Boba Fett, so they're going to really want to see it. So I feel like yes, Disney and Lucasfilm are going to capitalize off this show, but I do think hopefully it's really hard to tell where the show is going because I mean there's only so much of the child, obviously, like with just them on the run, we can do for a set amount of seasons. We need, another story element, like the child chooses the way of the Force and leaves Mando, or the child chooses the Mandalorian way and isn't going to use the Force anymore, and then we just get them together going on adventures. Like, we need a more concrete, I guess, direction of where the show's going. And obviously, for the first 2 seasons, it's fine, because we do have, first season was protecting the child, second season's delivering it to the Jedi, but after that, we really don't know what's going to happen. So I think that we should hopefully, especially if Disney gives those other characters their due and puts them in spin-off series, spin-off whatever, then they won't need to be put in cameos in The Mandalorian. Instead, they'll have their own series, so Mando can focus on being a central, just new characters every week, not, focusing on putting in cameos. Which, again, I love this season. I loved seeing Bo-Katan. I love seeing Ahsoka. I love seeing Boba. I don't mind that at all. But I do think that if these spin-off shows are to be created, I think that then also cameos can be made in those shows instead of just basically having, since Mando's the only Star Wars content we're getting right now and the only live action as well, then they're just trying to flush everything they can into it, connecting from other series. Again, not a problem of mine, but if it keeps going, we're not going to get as many new characters and new story elements as we want.
I feel you, man. I did like that they keep bringing Cara Dune and stuff back. Like
exactly.
I like the cameos. I mean, this, like I said, dude, seeing Boba Fett is just the most exciting thing ever. But like, I do want this show to have its own legs, and because in the future, like the way they're doing it right now, I mean, I've loved this season so far. Like, all my complaints with the season are out of like, I'm obsessed with this, but also it could be a little bit better kind of thing. But also it's like how we're referencing the prequels and Clone Wars and stuff. I want to be able to do that to like Mando and episode and the new trilogy and stuff like in the future. But if you only reference the old stuff a lot, there's not going to be anything new to pull from. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
yeah, and it makes sense new, because right? Like we were saying earlier,
Legends, but they're new in canon.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Thank you.
But I mean, it makes sense specifically if we're referencing Mandalorian stuff, because a lot of our knowledge, besides comic books, in any of the Star Wars media, comes from the Clone Wars and partly Rebels, but mainly the Clone Wars. I mean, there's a ton of plots and storylines in early Clone Wars, and then obviously the last season with the biggest plot of Mandalore. So it makes sense that they reach back. Like Bo-Katan, that's a great thing to pull in because she has a direct lineage to Mandalore. Like, it's a centrally driven Mandalorian story,
and
which
Boba
I like.
too. Like, they're Mandalorians.
Yeah, exactly. Boba Fett's a bounty hunter, so that also makes sense to incorporate. Ahsoka's a Jedi, so it makes sense to incorporate Baby Yoda. But like, the point being is, as long as they pull and reference and cameo stuff that makes sense to the story, I'll be fine with. But if Obi-Wan obviously it wouldn't be Obi-Wan, but if someone just like Luke Skywalker and the child is no longer in the show or something randomly showed up, you'd obviously have questions. If Han Solo randomly showed up, you'd be like, okay, there has to be a really good explanation, because it's really hard to understand why this character is with Mando at this time when we should be focusing on this story. Like, I think pulling back to the Clone Wars can be done if done tastefully, which they've done so far. But I agree with you, Finn. It shouldn't just be done as like just to basically add old supplemental Star Wars material to the new show.
Yeah,
dude, facts.
It kind of feels like a few things. One, we were talking about how like it kind of felt like they were propping up Boba Fett, but tearing down, or like I wouldn't say tearing down, but kind of like pushing down Din to like level up Boba Fett. You really didn't have to do that, because they didn't do that with Bo-Katan at all. Like, Mando still held his own in that episode. Even though, yes, he wasn't like as efficient as them, but I also take that as he's not used to working with other Mandalorians. Like, those three are a group, so they're gonna work a lot better together than just joining them on an adventure. Like, he'll be like, oh, I'm kind of like fourth wheeling it here. So that's kind of why he looked like he was behind. And then I think that we're gonna see some nods to like the sequel trilogy because
Yeah.
that Star Destroyer did not look like an original
Oh yeah,
trilogy Star
exactly.
Destroyer.
And
It looked more
I
like
saw someone say that
Pirates.
even the troop transport looked like the one from the start of Force Awakens and not any
Yep.
Imperial ones. So
So I think we're gonna see the
that's-
start of
I
the
think
First
that's-
Order.
This
and
makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Especially
then,
like, have any of you guys played Battlefront 2?
yes.
Like,
Yeah, I loved it.
I have not played it.
But
I
have you
watched
have you
it.
played the campaign or watched it?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
I
Most
And
of
like
it,
all
yeah.
those connections from, how they connected from the Empire
To
and
the
how they're
First
going to
Order,
revive
yeah.
the Empire and then to the First Order.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
kind of feel like we're in that part of the universe a little
Which
bit.
is
Exact-
so
well,
I
yeah.
was talking to Alex about this because we were like this show. I want to say it's built on bringing in characters from like other Star Wars media, but like that's a big part of this season at least. And we were like, we don't want them to like keep doing that. They're like they'll blow their load. So we were thinking, who else would they have? And I brought up Iden Versio could show up in an episode. Gina Gavankar already said that she has no problem playing the character again.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's
And
true.
it would like at this point she'd be a rebel, so
Yeah.
that could be interesting. Maybe like Mando needs help like for a ship or whatever, and like he comes across her or something. Either way, like I think he can still like transition into the sequels because like there's still time to do that.
Oh, yeah.
While homaging to the older to the original trilogy. We're in that weird space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're after the originals, but we're not in the sequels yet.
Yep.
Well, I think it's also important to keep in mind, like I love, like we said, we all love Star Wars. I do not think any of the prequel movies are good. Like I like Revenge of the Sith. I don't like the first two, but there's parts of them that I do like. But even then, it's like they were massively hated. It's even sometimes still are, but like for a long time. And I think that you can draw some comparisons, like the sequel trilogy, where it's
That's
like
what I keep saying.
as divisive as it is, the sequel trilogy. In 10 years or whatever, people are going to look back and be like, that was my Star Wars. Like, that is
Yep.
what I missed.
Well,
That's
exactly.
what
This new
So I think
generation
it's
of kids, yeah, for sure.
that's what, I think it's
Give the
important to
sequels
like
time.
show respect to the new stuff, and also like what you're saying, if how we're going back and we're filling in all the gaps kind of for the prequels and making them so much better, by you know what I mean, by adding more. I think that they're going to do the same thing with the sequels. I
Yep.
think that like the nostalgia will be there. Also, I think that the sequel trilogy is just much better films. in
They're better
general.
made films, yeah.
Like, so I think that it's really interesting how we're going to be able to do this going forward, where not everything has to be set in this time period, which, by the way, I think it is like the most interesting time period they could have chosen. But like, we could have stuff after the sequel trilogy with we could have stuff before, we could have stuff in the Old Republic. Like this, the possibilities of what they can do are endless, and it's only like my small gripes with Mando aside, like the fact that they're able to just connect this overall huge universe in a way like this is just awesome.
Yep.
I'm just loving to see what they're gonna do. Like to see some more First Order stuff. Like I'm really excited to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
excited to
Yep.
see the beginnings or the.
I wonder
aftermath.
if we'll see the beginnings of Starkiller Base in this show. Like maybe like the final directive of Moff Gideon is kind of like, all right, meet me at this ice planet that we're going to.
Well, yeah, it could be exactly. It could be that. And one thing I will say too, just something that relates to Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars The Clone Wars. What's really nice and what was done in the last season of Clone Wars, and I think is also really well done in Mando, is at least for me, when you're watching these animated shows, it almost feels sometimes like it's a separate part of the Star Wars universe. Because, for example, in Rebels and Clone Wars, we never see Maul in the films again, so it almost feels like that's just only a part we get to see in animation, just like we only see Bo-Katan and Mandalore and Ahsoka. And so it's nice seeing these characters that have only gotten time in the animated series that feels like it's honestly separate from the movies to be integrated into live action in a timeline
Yep.
that the movies are very close to, so it actually feels like everything is connected and this whole timeline's one uniform series of events rather than just the Clone Wars and Rebels are something people don't know about. It doesn't really connect to the movies. You
Yeah.
don't have to watch them if you don't want to, but instead incorporating like, no, this is a huge and serious part of the timeline. It's nice to see that, they're getting their due in this show, and I do agree with Finn, as long as it's tasteful and they don't just start throwing in random cameos after cameos to just basically give fan service to people who've seen the animated series, as much as I love them, I will like that. And again, like Gary said, they could easily branch off these shows into a whole universe of Star Wars live action shows if they wanted to on Disney Plus, and then develop these animated characters or completely new characters in different ways to expand that time period or just any time period in Star Wars too.
Yeah, because what I'm liking about Mandalorian, because you talked about it, AD, you said that at times I felt like the animation was kind of its own thing compared to the movies. And that's where a lot of people are kind of like, well, if it's not a movie, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
I kind of like how Mandalorian is changing. They're like, no, this is all part of the same universe.
Exactly.
It's all on the same thing. So it's kind of like showing these people like, hey, just because like you haven't seen the show or because it's a different like form of the franchise doesn't mean it's not a part of the same universe.
And honestly, it can be even related to the sequel trilogies. Like, it's obviously going to somehow connect to the First Order eventually if it keeps going down this path. And that, there's definitely many Star Wars fans who are like, the Disney films don't count. They ruined my childhood. I don't consider them a part of the timeline. But Mando connecting it obviously is going to give them more credibility, more realism. And it's just going to also kind of help, just like the animated series did, Clone Wars with the prequels, is kind of help like the storytelling maybe on things that we didn't know about. Like, for example, I know a lot of us played Jedi Fallen Order. And I believe it's Elam is the name of the planet, right?
Elam?
Yeah, Elam, where Yoda in the Clone Wars takes the Padawans to train, and then Cal Kestis goes back to get a lightsaber crystal where he was trained as a Jedi. That turns into Starkiller Base because of its strong connection with lightsaber crystals and Kyber. And so we could easily see something, making that distinct connection, because it's never been fully said. It's just in Jedi Fallen Order on the map. Elam is exactly where Starkiller Base is, so everyone's obviously saying that's what that means. But we could easily see a real connection in connecting that, and then that further explains The Force Awakens. It also, gives it the tie to the prequel trilogy. Like, we can easily see Mando, I guess, not even fixing, but just branching all of these, I guess, like separate limbs together to make like one uniform timeline.
Yeah, and another thing about like the Disney, and I know a lot of people are upset that the EU was tossed out once Disney bought Lucasfilm, but I think it was for the best. It's probably gonna like tick some people off, but I think this was for the best because if you look at the EU, the original way it was done. There weren't any Star Wars films. There was very little Star Wars like on-screen media coming out at the time of it started, because it started before the prequels. So you only had 3 films to go off of, so it kind of felt like they were just like making stuff up that could happen. But now like you have 9 saga films.
Yep.
Two spinoffs, a TV show that's live action, 2 animated shows, video games. It kind of feels like everything's a lot more like cohesive now. I feel like everything's a lot more connected now. Like Ilum, it became Starkiller Base. So like that's
not even gonna count Resistance, huh?
Oh, Resistance too. I haven't seen it. So.
Oh, that's what I meant to. I think I tried to say that earlier. Isn't it Rise of the Resistance? Right, that's what it's called.
It's just Resistance.
Or it's just Resistance. Yeah, that's what I meant to incorporate.
I think Rise of Resistance
that's another
is the
show.
game. Is the ride at
Yes, thank
Black
you. Yeah,
Pirate
it's the
Outpost?
Disneyland Galaxy's Edge ride. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even canon. Like the planet's canon. So I feel like everything about the new canon feels like it's all a part of the same universe. Not like
more accessible.
This,
yeah.
And then there's stuff that might count, maybe not. We'll figure it out.
Perfect way to bring it in, Bryan, and that's what I was gonna say earlier. Is it's like it is like I was disappointed when they did that, because so much of what I love from EU, like a lot of the Old Republic stuff, a lot of Thrawn, like all of that, I was so like bummed that a lot of it was taken out. But now, like 9 years almost into that, it's like, wow, this is the best way, because now you get the best of the EU, where they introduce the good stuff through canon that we're already used to. And then we also get to see all these new stories. You know what I mean? Like how getting Thrawn in Rebels was amazing. I'm not the biggest Rebels fan in the world, but like that was like a dream come true for me.
We know, fan. We know.
You know what I mean? Like, and now it's like we can really dive. And I have not read a lot of the EU stuff, to be honest with you. But from what I have read, it's like we can get more stuff with like Darth Bane, and like we can get a lot of these stories and characters that we wouldn't normally hear about anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
they recently made Revan canon in a book, like in a guidebook. So he's canon now.
Yep.
Dude, can you imagine like Old Republic set time period?
See, that's what I pitched this to Bryan. This was not on a podcast, but we were just talking, and we kind of discussed, would we rather have Star Wars The Old Republic with Revan, with Bane, with all these characters? Would we rather have a TV series or a trilogy? What would be the
TV
desired?
series.
See,
I don't
Brian
know,
said
man. I would be fine with either.
Brian said
honestly.
TV series. I said trilogy because I'd assume then we have like, but see, I don't know because from movies
TV
we've
series.
only had the Skywalker saga. We've never had anything that kind of goes out of it. So we really are we gonna now stop with movies like boom we're done, or are we gonna and obviously maybe have spin-off movies like Rogue One, like Solo here and there, or are we gonna have a new trilogy that just does something completely different? Like we have no idea, and especially because Mando
that
is
is
pushing the
interesting.
boundaries
Yeah, I like-
with TV right
I
now.
like the idea of doing movies, but I don't need any more saga films. I
Well,
think
exactly.
Rise of Skywalker, even though I was not a big fan of it, I think it ended things like it's a definitive end. Like we don't need any more Skywalker films. We don't need any more saga films. So if you're going to do films, kind of do it like how you did Rogue One and Solo. They're like one and done adventures. Because I was talking to Alex about this, and this is a story that I've really wanted them to do for a long time in Star Wars. Now, especially now. Just have like a movie with like clones trapped behind enemy lines trying to get back to base. That is a movie. That is not a show.
Oh yeah.
That would be
You could,
that would
but
be
you
a
could do
slog
it
of
though.
a show. That would
Like,
be a
all
slog
these-
of a show.
No, but all these ideas though, like that could be like Band of Brothers. You know what I mean? Like you could do like mini series for stuff. I don't need 4 seasons of. Actually, that would actually be sick. I was about to say Rex and his gang. That would actually be so sick. But like, I don't need 4 seasons of that kind of a show. Like, if you give me a 5-episode mini series, like, cause dude, the way the Mandalorian looks better than like more like
Oh yeah.
a lot
With
of
the
movies,
innovation
you know what I'm
of
saying?
the dome that they used to
Yeah.
film, it's
The
opened up.
volume was an
Yeah,
amazing
exactly. The
series.
volume. Thank you. That has opened up a ton of doors for Star Wars, and now the possibility of TV. Like Mando really pushed the boundary of how much they could do with how much money they had for TV. And the reception of it has been so overwhelming that, like Gary said again, they can easily, and I definitely see them doing it, profiting on this by creating a ton of Star Wars spin-off series with, we could do Old Republic, we could do Boba Fett, we could do Ahsoka, we could do the Owls with Bo-Katan, we could do Obi-Wan's obviously already slated.
Yeah, Obi-Wan's already
Even
announced.
Grand Admiral
Yeah,
Thrawn,
he
we
did
could have a
all,
series
bro.
of how the First Order rises, and maybe he has a huge part in it, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of
We already have 2
possibilities.
shows announced. We have 2 shows. We know Cassian is getting his own show with
Yep.
K2SO,
Yep.
and then we know Obi-Wan's getting his own show.
Obi-Wan
And
for
the
sure,
rumor
bro.
is that Boba Fett's getting his own show as well.
I
That is
don't.
what
That's
is
got to
going
be true.
around.
I think the Disney knows what they're doing with Boba. Obviously, this episode was a great indication of what their goals were. Obviously, to show that Boba is still super badass and nerfing Mando in the process of it, easily shows that they will obviously try to profit as much as they can and try to milk Boba as much as they can. So I see a TV series very soon. On the announcement.
Yeah, I like
Mandalorian-
that.
What were you saying, bro? I'm sorry, bro.
Oh yeah, I like because I remember when like they first announced their film slate before everything like kind of fell apart, and we were going to get
Yes.
a Boba Fett movie, and now like that's what I like about this era. Like they bring stuff in from Legends, and nothing's ever truly gone when it comes to this era of Star Wars.
Yep.
They're like,
True.
we'll take the movie, we'll make it into a TV show, and I like that. I think I would prefer a Boba Fett TV show.
I'm with
Because
you, Brian.
right now, Boba Fett isn't like he's not a real character still. Like we
Yeah.
know now that he's a Mandalorian, but that's really all we know. And we know he was like a bounty hunter. Get into what does being in the Sarlacc pit for like 10 years do to a man psychologically? What does
Exactly.
that do to someone?
That's what I
He
want to
was
see.
being
Like
eaten
that is.
alive.
Yep. And honestly, I'd like it if, and again, this is getting off Mandalorian and then more into Boba Fett, but I'd like it if they started like the first episode, maybe 2, explaining how he gets out of the Sarlacc pit, where he gets Slave 1, and then like, boom, you can flash back to him getting the armor from Mandalorian, and then now his series of events of what he's going to do, and then maybe even flashbacks to Jango and him, because they can obviously get another kid and then he can play Jango, and boom, they have prequel flashbacks if they want to. Like, it's an easy show to do, and I see Disney easily trying it, and I'm excited because, like Brian said, as a character, especially now where we are in Star Wars with him, you know, coming out of the Sarlacc pit with all of these experiences that we don't even know about that he's gone through between episode 3 and 4, with his, even in the Clone Wars as a kid, you know, with these bounty hunter gangs, like, we can easily get a lot of cool character development, just kind of understanding who he actually is. And then that helps, again, elevate the original trilogy, because now when we see Boba Fett, we'll be like, oh my god, this is this guy that we just saw in this spin-off series that's an absolute badass who has this
Yep.
history, blah blah blah.
Because
Dude,
aside
I-
from
yeah.
this, the most character development that we've had with Boba was in Clone Wars,
Yep.
and all that really was like, oh, he's like a bounty hunter with a heart. He doesn't want to kill people.
Yep.
But then he got locked up, so they kind of just dropped that. And He
Exactly.
just showed up again magically. So we need something there. We need something.
Yep.
I will say though, like actually, I have two thoughts. One, when you're talking about the production quality and stuff, like this show looks better than like some of the sequel trilogy. Like
Yep.
it looks so good,
True.
and
I
that was a
would say
big
it
fear of
looks
mine before
better-
this.
I would
mean, I
say
would,
it looks
but-
better than a lot of Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Well, I also would say though, like a big problem of mine was always like, oh, I don't know if I want them doing TV shows. Like, what about the quality? Like, you expect a certain amount of
Oh, of course,
production
of
value,
course.
quality from, but now it's like that's all out the window.
Exactly. If they can do it
You can
up
make
to
whatever
par
you
with the
want,
movies,
so-
then we want the TV shows because we get more
That's what I'm saying.
story.
But I definitely think it's a case by case basis with like which one should be a you know what I'm saying, like which one should be a movie, which one should be a show. But also, I will say this though, I want another really not adult, but like a teen-ish era, like animated show, like more Clone Wars vibes than Resistance. Like I want more animation, just because we can do it live action.
Exactly,
Doesn't mean
very
we
true.
only have to do it live action.
Yeah, I
Like, give me
think the
more
Ahsoka
Clone
show
Wars
should
type
be
stuff.
animated.
Me too.
Agreed.
We can get back the original voice as much as she did a great job in the episode. I didn't think that Rosie did a bad job, but I think that the voice is just so iconic from Clone Wars and Rebels that we need her back. And then I think it's just better if we follow, because obviously Ahsoka is looking for Ezra. That is the mission that she was tasked with at the end of Rebels. That's where what we see her doing in the Mandalorian episode is asking where Thrawn is and Thrawn's connection to Rebels. I mean, to Ezra. So we know that that's what she's doing. So if we got it animated again, whether it's in the Rebel style or another style, we could easily see, and it would be better to see, in my opinion, that her pursuing that goal in animated style rather than live action. They don't need
I do
to
like
do
that
it.
they're not going away from animated, because the Bad Batch show is animated. So
Yep.
they're like, we know you guys still like your animated stuff. So I think it's a good idea that they're not abandoning it, because even when the movies were out, we had movies, but we also had Rebels, we had Resistance.
Yep.
So they know there's a market out there for animation. Star Wars to me has been at its best in animation. Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yep,
To me,
most
those
of
are
the
like
time,
the two
yeah.
best things that Star Wars has. So I wouldn't want them to go away from it, but now that Dave Filoni's doing more live action stuff, do you think he can really like balance his time between animation and live action?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, again, yeah,
Yeah.
Dave
We need
Filoni has a
we
huge
need more
hand.
Yeah,
people.
I think he can.
Yeah.
Because
Everything
this wasn't just him, you know. This is not just him working on it. Unlike the fucking sequels. I'm sorry, wrong language, but unlike the sequels,
You're good. You're good. Trust me.
unlike the sequels, there's actual teamwork being done here.
Yep.
I felt like
Yep.
the sequels was a bit of like
There's communication.
there was a lot of miscommunications
Yep.
until on like what the vision was, which is
Yep.
why some people like the sequels, some people don't.
Yeah.
And then it's like visually, the sequels were amazing, but like to me, I was just like, it felt very disjointed,
Exactly.
and it felt like they kept on retconning stuff from each other.
Yep.
But like, Mandalorian is a project of like 8 different directors.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's all driven by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's vision. to
True.
me.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
as producers and writers, but like cinematography wise and just like the direction of
It doesn't
and feel
rely
of
on
the
one
Mandalorian
person.
overall, it's always consistent. That's
Yes,
the thing. It is
very
still
true.
consistent. And like I really think that Dave Filoni could balance this, because like
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, he don't have to direct every single episode, but
Yep.
so far he's only done one of this season.
Yep.
this
Two?
is he's only the one.
Robert
Here at the
Rodriguez directed this. He's like a
Yeah.
director.
Oh yeah.
That was
and
sick.
I do want to talk about Rob. I do want to talk about this episode in terms of cinematography. I'm a big like technical guy. Like I don't know. After I took like music and like theater classes, I've been very into like the technical aspect of like music and theater.
Yes.
And I really thought that this was probably the weakest of all the episodes.
It's not shot crazy.
Well, exactly. I don't think they spent a lot of
especially coming
time
off the
trying
Ahsoka
to
episode,
do that.
Which is shot
Yeah.
so well.
Oh yeah, beautifully. The sound design, everything
Yeah.
about the Ahsoka episode.
Everything about
really...
Ahsoka episode was perfect, and obviously
Exactly.
because that's Dave Filoni. But then, like with Robert Rodriguez, his episode, like he had the action, he he didn't have the angles. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And it felt like you like a good toy photographer when you see one. is
Yep.
when, when they got all those things down. And then a new toy photographer or something is when, like, oh, they got the poses, but that angle just doesn't work for that.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't work for that shot. And then you want to like it and give them criticism, like, oh, this could be better. But then it's just like, that's how I felt about this episode, because I don't know about you, but did it feel like they shot it at the Dome?
I don't think so. I think it was on location.
Yeah,
I think they shot
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
looked
what it
very
felt
much
very
on location.
Yep.
And they did not play to that location strength whatsoever.
Exactly.
Like, we had a lot
agree.
of pan shots. We had a lot of landscaping shots, and it just didn't feel good. It really felt like a fan-made movie.
Yep, a little more disjointed.
It really felt like something else I could have watched on YouTube, sadly.
Yep.
And that was just like the technical aspect of it all.
Of
like,
course.
I was like, oh shit, who directed this? And I was like, wow, you directed this? I'm really shocked. Like, this is very amateurish looking.
Oh, by the way, Bad Batch comes out next year. Thanks, Jazz. My sister's in the chat. She's a big Star Wars fan too. We always talk about this stuff.
Got it. Okay,
cool. Another thing is I think a lot of people will be like surprised by like Dave Filoni's ability to shoot things because he's an animation guy. But Dave Filoni has said that George Lucas taught him how to shoot things in live action because they storyboard. He's like, if you're going to do a shot, if you're going to show you that set of like shots.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
He's a straight student of the craft.
During Clone Wars, Dave Filoni and George Lucas had offices right next to each other.
Yep.
So if Dave was like, "Hey, I need something," like, let's talk about it.
Yep, exactly. And going off of that too, in terms of the balance, like back to what we were talking about, he basically already did it. Really, I mean, Dave Filoni had a big hand in the first season of Mandalorian, obviously, and we saw the end of Clone Wars. Shortly, after. Like within a couple months. So Dave Filoni was obviously working on both at one point, probably at the same time, or at least very close to each other. And he executed both. Well, either way, he wasn't overwhelmed. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, he executed last season of Clone Wars, amazing. He executed The Mandalorian, obviously amazing. So I don't think it's at all past his ability to juggle one or two, or maybe even all of them. But obviously, you'd have to have a very small hand in the rest of them and focus on one series. But I definitely see him being able to help juggle and, I guess, lend wisdom to a lot of other creators if these shows obviously take off the ground.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing. One of my we talked about earlier how this like universe feels very connected now that Disney's bought it. Everything feels like it's under the same universe. My worry about what they did in Mandalorian this week, and then kind of what they did last week with Ahsoka, I don't want them to make things like so like the audience understands things easier. I don't want them to like retcon certain things out. Like, I don't want them to get to the point where they're like, Clone Wars said it this way, but we're gonna like change it so it's like easier to understand. So you don't have to watch Clone Wars.
Well, I do agree for sure. Yep, I do agree for sure. And the nice thing, at least with Mando, specifically with Boba, is at least we didn't get that explanation ever before. Yeah, sure, we had the governor say obviously Jango wasn't a Mandalorian, he was a bounty hunter. He had no idea how he got the armor, but that easily could have been because Jango left Mandalore and like deleted his logs or whatever because he just didn't want to be a Mandalorian anymore. So we haven't had, at least as far as I'm aware, any like true hard retconning of concrete knowledge that was given in Clone Wars Rebels or any other Star Wars medium. But yes, I do agree, Brian. I don't think they should. If they ever did that, I would be very disappointed because Star Wars, through almost like a lot of, I guess, what we really appreciate, it could be Star Trek, it could be Star Wars, it could be Marvel, it could be DC, it could be a lot of these stuff we looks at.
All on the same route.
Exactly. Star Wars has a great timeline, and they care about making sure everything makes sense and fits, and characters obviously come back, they go, and it's very easy to follow if you watch all the mediums, obviously. Maybe not as easy if you're just watching the movies, but it's still, there's a concrete like record of when everything's happening. Like, you get explanations for everything. Whereas obviously some universes like DC, for example, are always contradicting each other with their shows. The same with Marvel, with their movies, specifically DC, because they have a really expansive TV universe that connected to their movie universe. But point being, Star Wars always feels like it has a very linear story. Everything makes sense. Nothing's really contradicted each other too much besides obviously the EU being canceled. But the timeline we have right now is very solid, very concrete. There's not really any cracks or holes in it, and I don't want Mando creating those for the sake, like you said, Brian, of the ease of the people who are casual Star Wars viewers. And again, like Bo-Katan, for example, and Ahsoka, both are introduced. If I never watched the shows, honestly, I feel like I could have watched both those episodes and been like, oh, those are just new characters in this show. Like, it didn't seem like these characters were around forever and, like, we were just jumping into them with no context. Bo-Katan explains who she is and has a separate mission that seems it's pretty straightforward. She's going after the Darksaber. We don't know her true intentions if you didn't know the movie, but, I mean, you can kind of tell she's Mandalorian and wants it. And then the same for Ahsoka. We just know she's a Jedi living out on this planet, and she is not going to train him because obviously there was some sort of event that happened during the Jedi Temple fall that we know is Anakin going bad. We don't really know her connection to it. But yeah, so like I think they've done a good job in not trying to, change the story to give Ahsoka and Bo-Katan an easier connection to Mandalorian. I think they're just taking, they're not obviously going full effect into explaining everything because of how hard that would be. So I agree with you, Brian, for sure, and I think so far they've done a good job, and I hope they continue to do so.
Well, Dave Filoni kind of has a history. I wouldn't say of like retconning things, but I did remember when the final season of Clone Wars happened and Maul and pretty much like the final like batch of episodes, like the Mandalore stuff and the link up to the end. If you read the Ahsoka book, things don't really line up between the book and what happens in the show.
Yeah.
So that's a little questionable, but you could just take that as like some things of the book are remembered differently, or they just aren't canon anymore. But I don't want them to be like, yeah, like this key episode but didn't happen.
Yeah, very true. I definitely agree with that. We'll be closing out fairly soon, but there's just two things we need to talk about real quick. Okay, yes, yeah, Gary, go.
I got a question. Probably all thinking the same thing. About the Razor Crest.
That's what I was about to bring up.
Oh, yeah.
About the Razor Crest.
No, Gary, no!
That was a prediction.
Oh,
what a
no.
Prediction. What a prediction. How do you think collectors feel,
dude,
now that the Razor Crest is gone?
They just watch their money get blown up, essentially. That's exactly what happened.
That doesn't exist.
You know what's the crazy thing? They probably got the Razor Crest, and now I have a feeling that this season might end with Boba giving Din the Slave One. So then they can
That's
just do
a prediction.
Haslab
Wow.
Slave One.
Interesting. That's a prediction. I don't know. I
don't know if I like that one.
Again, I see very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy where, oh my gosh, the Milano was destroyed. Oh, all hope's lost. Oh, we get it back at the end of the freaking movie, and boom, it's back. Like, I feel like...
Yeah, but they had the technology to do so. Remember
exactly.
What,
very true.
Remember what Rocket Raccoon had? He had that... It was like a gun that literally built the ship back. And I was like,
yeah,
that is so freaking stupid, but that's cool. But
that's true.
Stupid.
Well, it is,
like,
yeah. It's hard to replace
ships.
So.
Instead of having a real mechanic, here's a gun that fixes everything.
Exactly. So we don't... I mean, again, they could repair it, or he could get a new Razor Crest, a newer model, whatever. Or we just don't get any more either, like Brian says, Slave One comes in, or he just gets a new ship, or we don't even get a ship by the end of the show, which I feel like won't happen. I feel like he'll get a ship. We just don't know what. So either collectors are kicking themselves and will continue to when this show ends, or they will be very happy that the Razor Crest comes back, and we don't know which.
We have McDoug in the chat. He said, I felt the souls of all the backers being crushed when it exploded.
It was literally like watching your money get blown up on screen, essentially.
And at the same time, we could easily say, well, I mean, people still buy like Death Star toys.
That's true. Exactly. That's true.
Blown up twice, but that is so different. That's like if the Millennium Falcon was destroyed in episode 4, and oh snap, yeah, we never see it again. It's such an iconic feature to the Mandalorian, especially when it's a ship that's completely different from a lot of other ships that we've seen. And that's kind of like the key thing here.
Yep.
And I'm like, I was so close to backing it. I'm so glad I didn't. But I'm still heartbroken that I didn't. But I'm kind of happy that I didn't.
Well, yeah,
it makes
and
me so bad though. It's this predatory practice that Hasbro's been doing with the Mandalorian stuff. Like they give us the worst armor ever, and then like a month later, they're like, "Yo, by the way, this one that's better is actually coming." And don't worry, It's not gonna be the last time we get a different armor. Like they wait, everyone buys it up, and then they drop a different one that's way better, and everyone's like, well, I guess I just wasted money buying that one for so I can have it a couple months.
Well,
Like,
again,
every
Hasbro's
company
very
did, though, but,
eager
like,
to jump on the Mando train. I mean, that's something
That's
we've
what I'm saying. But
always
Lego
known.
just dropped like $130 Razor Crest. Like everyone is doing this Razor Crest stuff, and I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, no, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody wants that now. If it's gone,
Well, if it's gone, but I will say, I
I
mean,
don't think he can bring it back though.
well, yeah,
he
it
can.
depends.
And
Could
Wisman's in the
rebuild it, I
chat
guess.
too. What's up, Wisman?
hey, Wisman, my dog.
But my sister, she brought up a good point. She says the Razor Crest is an A class slash type is a class slash type of ship. He could just get another one, but I think it'd be lame and it wouldn't be the same. So he could get another version of the Razor Crest.
Yeah, I thought about
But
that too.
I don't really
Yep.
think that'd be kind of like worthless. Why would he do that?
Well, exactly.
That
There's no
that sucks
connection
the
to
emotion
it.
from it.
Yep, and I do. Again, I was gonna say, in terms of people who back the Razor Crest and like what they're thinking right now, I will say in terms of shots, ACBA, I don't know what you're gonna do for displays. I guess you could just display them with the Baby Yoda like frozen in time in terms of like between season 1 and 2. But if you're doing shots, I think the best thing to do would be to use the brown armor Wolverine if they release him in whoa, brown
my God.
armor Mando. I don't know why I said Wolverine. Mando, because
Wow.
that's
okay.
obviously Mandalorian's around before the show, and he's obviously in the Razor
right.
Crest doing bounties, so you can easily do shots with that. But after he gets the Beskar, there is a set time period from when he gets the child to when it just got blown up that you can only do really shots from what we've seen. So you really got to just, if you want at least for it to make sense, you really got to, I guess, choose to use it before the show, because that's when we didn't see it, and that's when it's not blown up, and that's when you could make up news stories with the Razor Crest. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely feel bad. Like literally after I watched last night, I text Bryan. I'm like, bro, people who backed the Razor Crest right now are kicking themselves so hard.
Yo, another thought though. So I guess Boba Fett's armor is Beskar now. I thought it was just Durasteel.
Well, I mean, it feels like every Mandalorian armor right now is Beskar, because even I rewatched, I've been rewatching the Mandalorian episodes with my father, and we watched the one with Bo-Katan again, and it says, I think either the fish or one of like the frog or someone in the restaurant when Mando goes to ask says people with Beskar have been through here, basically referring to the owls, Bo-Katan and the other two Mandalorians. So it seems like Beskar is every Mandalorian's armor, but in terms of canon of its durability, it's very inconsistent. Maybe it's because Mando's armor's newer, like was literally forged last season out of pure Beskar, and like obviously we see that it's pretty indestructible so far. However, we see Sabine and Boba Fett obviously have dents and cracks in theirs, and some people die to even a lightsaber strike through it. So it could be over time, it degrades, it deteriorates, it becomes less strong, or maybe it's just because they have not pure Beskar, but it's Beskar with another metal because of how rare it is.
That one.
Yeah,
Dude,
we don't
you
know.
look at Django, like all canon materials or whatever aside, like you look at Django and Attack of the Clones, and that looks just like Mando's like armor.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was saying last
And
week with
silver.
Bryan, is that's like, it looks like pure Beskar, which we know now that it basically is because it's the
Also,
same
that
armor.
armor is like, how old is that armor? When is Attack of the Clone? Like, how long ago is Attack of the
At
Clones?
least,
from where
let's
that-
Attack of the Clones had to have been 29 years before Episode 4.
Yeah, so
Bro,
another
that's like
Do your math from there.
like
40 years old now?
7, so like 30, like late 30s probably.
That's what I'm saying, almost
Mid
40.
to
like,
late
that's
30
where that
years.
is old, bro.
And that's just when we saw it. I mean, Django could have
Yeah.
been sporting that for years before, or
That's
even
very
it could have
true.
been created by another Mandalorian in sport, or
But
actually, I guess it
Boba's
was his
armor
armor. But...
holds up better. She said it's been in her favor 3 generations.
Exactly, very
there
true.
you go.
So it's really, I mean, I guess in terms of like scruffs and battles, it seems like obviously Django and Boba were always in bounty hunter scenarios where, for the most part, what we saw early on was Bo-Katan was with Death Watch for a bit, but there wasn't a ton of action going on. They were just planning, and then we obviously get the siege, and then after that, it feels like it's still calmed down besides a couple skirmishes, and then now it's up again. Like it's just it's
like
not the constant degeneration that we see from Django and Boba. Obviously, always in some sort of battle with
also
it.
besides like the dings and few marks and stuff, most of that looks just like chipped paint. Like a
Well,
lot of that.
true.
does. And
Boba's
also
is a
the
lot of
big
paint
dent on the
coming off.
man's
No, but I'm saying
helmet.
like, but that could have been anything. But I'm saying like he was also in there with the Sarlacc with that. Like he is that armor has been through some stuff.
Well, exactly.
And I don't
And
want
it definitely.
I don't want Beskar to be indestructible either. Like I don't
No.
want it to be.
I don't either.
I just see that's what bothers me is Mando being able to put up his arm guards and a lightsaber hit it, and not any of the technology's ruined. There's no marks on it. The same with
So I would need burn marks at least. Like
exactly,
marks that, like,
and the
with
same
a hot,
with
with a hot
the same with this last
substance
episode
or
where
something.
Mando's protecting Fennec by like basically blocking every lightsaber blast.
It's just
blast.
eating laser
Yeah,
fire.
exactly. And there's no marks on his armor after. Like it makes no sense. Freaking Boba Fett is shot in the head by Cad Bane and gets a dent on his helmet just from one blaster shot. And
what
that's
I
a
was
big
gonna ask.
dent.
Do you think that's still canon now? Because they
I
made
don't
it,
know,
they made
but-
it Beskar, so they could be like that episode. Since it's not even a finished episode.
See, but then
like,
what
Bad
would have
Batch
made
has
the
always
dent?
kind of been
Like, there's gotta
be
questioned canon
something.
anyway.
Like I don't know what would have made the dent then if that didn't make the dent. Like there's no. Was that like did he fall? Like there's no way that Beskar
took a
would be
big
dented
fall.
that much unless he got
It's
shot
a big fall.
by like
It's a big fall.
a big fall.
Nah, I really
Got out of
think
the sky
it's
or
just.
something.
I think it's the purity of it all.
Exactly,
Like
that's
you said,
what I was
What
thinking, too.
percentage of Beskar like do you really have?
Yeah.
Because remember, like he
Well,
had,
again, it's super
what
rare
was
after the fall of
because
Mandalore.
he had like what was it like the very last like of pure Beskar that he stole
Exactly.
from the Imperial guy, and then like Bo-Katan, like you said, hers is like she's royalty. So if you're royalty, are you gonna have second class like Beskar? Nah, your shit's gonna be like top notch, at least
Exactly.
5%. You know.
Exactly.
And then like Boba, like it makes sense for probably his be like 50% because he doesn't have like full Beskar armor
He
either.
also like
Very
whatever
true.
off of a soldier, right? Like if we're going by that canon, he took it off of like it was probably a lower class warrior that he got that from.
But he says the armor was gifted to Jango.
Well, exactly,
Jango's
because he's a foundling.
That's just his
So
armor.
yeah, it is his armor.
Yeah, but and if he's a foundling, like remember, Mando also already had armor in the beginning.
Yep,
So
exactly.
maybe
And that wasn't
armor
pure.
that he had was Beskar,
Well,
but wasn't
yeah.
like pure.
No,
Beskar.
exactly. I mean, I think any Mandalorian armor has to be a little bit of Beskar. That's why Mando gives some of his Beskar to the foundlings, is because that's where that comes from, is they have to use some Beskar to make the armor, and then they can include whatever industrial metal they want. And I think that's why Mando has so many scratches and marks on his first armor. And now, because, again, like Gary said, this is pure Beskar. We literally see a just Beskar being formed to make this armor. And then you also, I mean, last episode, I didn't even think about it, but the Magistrate gives Mando this spear, and he looks at it like, holy shit, I've never seen this. And she says pure Beskar like it's the rarest thing in the galaxy. Like, you don't see pure Beskar ever. So I think that's why all of their armor, most of the armor, obviously besides a couple scenarios, aren't pure Beskar. They just have Beskar obviously in it for durability, and then use another metal as well to give it its fullness.
Durasteel and Beskar mix.
Exactly, and I think that's what it is. That's why some armors don't hold up as much. Just like Gary said, it makes sense that Boba, because Jango was a foundling, and because even then they probably wouldn't have given pure Beskar unless it was to royalty probably at that time. That's why his armor integrity is low. That's why Bo-Katan's is more higher, and that's why Mando's is so high, is because it's literally nothing else but Beskar in that crate that's given to his armor.
All right.
All right, I think
Yeah.
we got one more thing to talk about. Just one. Predictions for next week.
Yeah,
What's
so
everyone
bold
thinking?
predictions for next week, and well, we only have 2 episodes left anyway, so.
Exactly. We only have 2 episodes left, but I think we've basically, just like last season, we're getting into the final arc, obviously. And this will carry us from this episode to the last one of the child gone, how we're going to get him back, who we're bringing to the mix to get it. So,
Ben, start us off. You weren't here last week. Start us off.
Yeah.
Start us off.
Okay, I have a few ideas. I do think in the next few episodes, though, we're going to have Mando fight Moff Gideon with his spear, Moff Gideon having the Darksaber. We're going to get some type of fight
That's a
there.
good one.
And then I think we're going to see
I thought of that as well.
Moff Gideon lose that Darksaber. I don't think he's going to have it next season.
Yeah, I think so.
Bryan, you don't sound so sure, bro.
Well, all right. So here's my prediction. It's not for the next episode because I think they're gonna get Mayfield back. I'm not a huge fan of his character. I didn't really like him last season, but I do. If we're going after Moff Gideon, who has the Darksaber, it would be weird if you don't bring back Bo-Katan.
Exactly.
his
That's
sole
what I'm
purpose right
thinking
now.
too.
So I hope that Din at some point contacts her and is like, hey, we need your help, all right? And she gets the Darksaber back because I
exactly.
don't want, what's his name? I don't want Din to be the leader of Mandalore yet because he still has to put the child where he needs to be. And then I don't want
He's
Boba Fett
sequestered.
ruling Mandalore.
Well, exactly.
That would make no sense.
Yep. And that was,
Especially
He's
this
I
too
mean,
TV show
lost
coming
there.
out. That'd
I
be
agree
weird.
for sure. I definitely had that thought. Like, I think this was last night. I was like, obviously, when he pulled the spear from the wreckage, I thought, like Finn did. I'm like, oh, we're going to get Mando versus Moff. Like, this is going to happen. There's no way. Because we see how that spear holds up against a lightsaber perfectly. So we obviously are probably going to get him versus Moff. But then today, I was thinking, like, I want Bo-Katan to get it back. Like, that's her whole quest right now, is to get the Darksaber back and to rule Mandalore. She is the rightful ruler.
Let's
So
talk about
are we gonna
questions.
see
get both?
like, are we gonna see Mando versus Moff Gideon? Mando wins and gives it to Bo-Katan. Or are we gonna see Bo-Katan versus Moff Gideon? And she
What if
uses
what if he
the
gives
spear?
it to Mo? What if he gives it to Bo? Like, to
Exactly.
use?
We don't.
I hope that
No.
happens. Like he can't Din just can't beat Moff, and then Bo shows him. He's like, "Hey, this
Give me
is your
that."
mission anyway," and
Yep.
then she does the job.
Exactly. So that's a prediction. I think we all kind of are circulating around. Gary, do you have your predictions for either next episode or just kind of where the series is heading?
Man, I did have an idea. Like I said, I really do feel as if, like, at the very end, we're gonna get like a really huge collaboration between all these guest characters to help, get the child back.
Yep.
I really hope. It's kind of weird, but I kind of hope like a Jedi that we don't know that may have survived, like, shows up.
Yep, that's very true. Everyone's
I don't
been
know why.
saying, like, oh, it's going to be Ezra, oh, it's going to be Cal Kestis, so it's going to be all these people, but we don't
Bro,
even
I
think
hope
of
it's
all
not Cal
the...
Kestis or Ezra, bro.
all the,
Hey,
come on now. Come on now, Finn.
I like Cal.
not,
I
Finn.
do.
Ezra is so lame.
Bro, get
I
out
do like
now.
Cal. I do. Those would be good choices, but like Cal will be. I think Cal should stay in video games right
I
now.
agree with that, for sure.
Agreed.
Ezra is not a real Jedi yet, is he?
Neither is Cal. No, Cal
No.
did
Cal's
get
a
knighted.
Jedi.
Yeah, he got knighted.
Yeah.
Ezra
Don't
never
slight
finished
my
his
boy.
training because
Don't
Kanan
slight my
died.
boy.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
don't slight my boy Cal, because I played lots of hours with that man. All right?
No, I think
we've been through a lot.
exactly. I agree
I mean,
that
you
I don't
never
think
fought that frog.
Yeah.
You never fought that frog, bruh. When you fight that frog with Cal, then you understand.
I definitely
And then,
think, like, in terms of Jedi, though, I do think that Ezra and Cal shouldn't come. Obviously, like Gary said, Cal should stay in the Gamerverse, and I think Ezra should stay. Like, that reveal should happen when Ahsoka and Sabine
In the
find him.
Ahsoka thing,
yeah,
yeah.
it shouldn't just be out of
Yeah.
nowhere. And I think so that deals with both those, and everyone, like we've said, is like banking on, oh, it's gonna be Mace Windu, he's still alive. Oh, it's gonna be Luke
No, thank
Skywalker.
you.
Everyone
Please
thinks
That
it's
would be so weird.
Exactly.
but I would
Everyone
want
thinks
that
it's going to be a
Here's my
Jedi we
theory.
know, but it's probably won't be. And it'd be cool to see if they introduce a new one that we don't know.
Yeah, I was just about to say, why don't they just make a new one? I
Exactly.
think that'd be way more.
But
It
that's
wouldn't
not,
be
like,
Samuel
cool.
Jackson
That's not-
either, because
that's a
Samuel
cool
Jackson
reveal.
didn't even star in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., let alone the Star Wars movies, like TV show spinoff. Like, they can't afford that guy.
Exactly.
Well, Sam Jackson was in like 3 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly. That was it.
Well,
At the very
I
end.
think I told Alex this. I think this whole thing is gonna end, or the whole arc. If Din cannot bring Grogu back to his people, then I think that he is going to take him to Luke Skywalker.
So Luke Skywalker can toss him off a cliff?
I mean, hey, this is before he became disillusioned. Okay.
Oh, that's true.
But looking in the chat, we have 796
I love that idea,
Studios
Bryan.
here.
Hey, 796 Studios.
I just, again,
Hey,
I'll always say
big
this,
homie.
but I'm really hoping that Luke and Ahsoka meet at one point. Like, even if it's in the animated series or whatever it's in, I would just want to hear an interaction between the two of them. With Ahsoka, obviously
I
knowing
want Galaxy
Anakin
of
so well.
Adventures to do a small short
Oh.
of The Mandalorian.
Oh, Galaxies of Adventures. What a
That's what I
great
want.
little, like, video series that they do. It's just awesome.
Those are cool. Are you talking about Forces of Destiny? No. Those are fun little shorts. I really don't see why
They're funny.
so much.
They're funny. I think there was one with, I think I only seen like 2. One with Ezra and Ahsoka training, and I thought that was really good. And then there was another one with Jen Erso, but she was like, it didn't make any sense canonically. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
And then they do have ones that like fill in gaps. Like they do one of how Leia got her dress in episode 6, like magically.
Nobody cares about that.
I thought that was a cool fill-in. And then,
How'd you get your dress, girl? Oh, Macy's.
oh my god. Then they do like
What kind
another
of that,
one
Ross?
with Ahsoka and Padme, and it kind of like hints that that Ahsoka knows that.
Oh yeah,
Padme
I
is
watched
with
that one. Yeah, I
Anakin.
like that
was
one.
really cool.
Yeah.
So and like this one where Hera and Han Solo meet during Endor, that was really cool, and they race, like in their ships.
Yep, I remember that one too. Okay, so I think we've basically finished the whole spoiler talk, the whole episode. First of all, thank you to Bryan and Gary for coming again
It's always
for
a
the
pleasure
second
to be back.
to talk about Star Wars. And Finn, thank you for joining me as another Shutterbugs host because last week I was feeling pretty lonely without you. So
As
thank
always,
you.
my friend.
And thank
Happy
you
to be
guys,
here.
our concurrent
It's
viewers in
important,
the chat. I guess that's it. Thank you, 796 Studios, Michael Wisman. Obviously,
Hey.
Brian's sister Jasmine McDoug. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the
Facts.
episode, and tune in next week, please, because we're going to be
Aiden,
again
let me make
reviewing
a quick
another episode. Of course, Finn.
Very quick at what?
Let me make a quick announcement,
Quick?
bro.
You said
Everyone,
quick and Nexus.
hey, nice one, Gary. No, I'm just kidding, my bad, bro. I be tripping over my words. No, okay, Shutterbugs fans, all four of you. We have been working tirelessly to get all of the episodes off of YouTube. I mean, they'll still be there, but like download all the episodes, edit them up, throw them up on iTunes. So hopefully by next week, we are going to have every single Shutterbugs episode in order in the iTunes RSS feed, and then eventually, hopefully, Spotify. I'm going to keep you guys updated, but that is something we are working really hard on, and then hopefully we'll have some really more fun stuff to announce in the future. So keep looking. Follow us on Instagram at
Yep.
Shutterbugs Podcast, and we'll keep you updated.
All right, see you guys. Thank you for watching.
Whoa, we can do plugs.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't
you.
end it. All right, plugs. Here we go. Brian,
Alright,
start
Gary,
us off.
You can go first.
Or Gary, yeah.
Yeah, you can catch me on Instagram like usual. At Geeky Fresh, turn all the E's into threes.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
currently working on some Dragon Ball Z content for DB December.
Poncho's going crazy.
Making
with that.
some dioramas it's really tournament of power centric, so not really DBZ, but Dragon Ball.
I cannot wait to
stuff.
see it, bro.
Oh yeah.
It all
Dragon Ball
counts.
stuff. It counts.
All right.
It counts.
Brian, what do you got going on?
You can find me at cap.lives on Instagram, cap_lives on Twitter, cap_lives on YouTube, and then you can catch me on the Big Heads podcast with Gary.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Sir.
My co-host Finn,
Oh,
what
man.
do you got going on?
Okay, you guys can follow me on Instagram at Finn Aiden. Follow me
Hey,
on
that's
YouTube
my name.
At Findy. A spelled an I though, AIDAN. And then you can also follow my other photography Instagram at Finn Dietz on Instagram. I've been doing a lot of like real world stuff there. But most importantly, guys, please follow the Shutterbugs podcast on Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes if you would. That would be great. Subscribe to A1 Groundwalker. You already know, bro. Come on now. Like,
You already know what it is.
Exactly.
you
The
already
only
know what
other
we doing out here, bro. Come on.
the only other plug I have to add is go follow my Instagram as well as everyone else's A1_Groundwalker because that's
Get
where a lot of
A1's follower count up, bro.
Please, man, should be at 1K already.
Thank you guys.
10K,
It's going
bro.
up a lot higher than in terms of like the rate. I'm getting followers every day, which is pretty
Bro,
nice.
I've
to
been
see, so.
stuck at 6,460
Oh my,
something.
6,000.
Imagine that.
Oh,
Imagine
I'm
wanting to be stuck
stuck.
at that. So,
Bro,
so
but Geeky,
well,
you
that
don't
must
even
be
say one
nice.
thing, bro. You have way more engagement. Don't even talk, bro.
That's true.
Mans get sponsored by Hasbro, then has the nerve.
oh,
Mm,
that was a one-time deal.
It's all
I
love,
guess.
bro. It's all love. Just
I
like,
guess.
Okay, guys, it's been real. It's been
Oh,
fun.
I
Thank
got
you guys for
lucky.
watching. Tune in to next week's show, and we may have even more just regular Shutterbugs episodes coming out in between
We will,
these
baby.
weekly reviews, and for
We probably
sure
won't be on
after
those.
these reviews as well.
bro,
so.
who said y'all can't come on as guests?
Oh yeah,
Y'all
Oh,
are
yeah.
family at this
You'll
point.
be recurring
Come
guests.
on.
Oh yeah, we need Gary on as an official guest first of all, and then
That's
Brian
facts.
obviously coming back as well. But yeah,
Thank you.
I gotta come back first.
Okay, Gary. Okay, bro. Only 2/3 of us are the ones who are ready, bro. We waiting on Alex still.
yeah, that's
He's
real.
doing his best.
Alex is
Alex.
the most.
Alex, I guess Alex
inconsistent.
takes TP to fill his void.
Alex Wood cannot be filled. Pause.
Oh, okay, guys.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you guys
that's
for
good.
watching. See you later. All right, I ended the stream, boys.
Bro,
Alright.
I was just joking, Gary.